Hello YouTube, Andy again here with another bass guitar review. Today I am featuring my Rickenbacker 4003S 4-string bass guitar. Really love this bass. Before I get started, I just want to say, like I've said in my other videos, I am not sponsored by anybody. These are my 100% honest reviews. I'm not going to hold any punches. If there's issues with them, I'm going to tell you about them, the pros and cons, so that you have some information before you go spend quite a bit of money. I don't know what these are going for nowadays. I bought this in 2015. I think I paid $14.99 for it. I think they're over $2,000 now. I'm not really sure, but I know the price with inflation has gone up quite a bit. So something to consider, but the iconic Rickenbacker 4003 bass, you can't beat it. They're so beautiful. Anyways, I'll give some commentary in a minute, but let me start with some of the features. Rickenbacker basses are maple bodies, maple neck, and they use a special rosewood for the fretboard. I think it's like Caribbean rosewood or something. You can comment in the leave a comment if you know exactly where, but it's a lighter rosewood. It's really beautiful. I like it a lot. Part of the signature sound of the Rickenbacker has to do with a couple things. It is neck through, as you can see. It's a neck through body. So it just gives it more of a, I don't know, more sustained, more solid resonance. You know, there's a lot of argument about whether that really does that or not, but I'm a fan of neck through. The headstock, you know, big beefy headstock. I think it's just such a great design. I took the stock bridge off and I put the hip shot solid brass version of the direct replacement bridge for this bass. I also bought the treble bezel just to protect the cavity in here, because if you don't have that on there and you take that cover off, which I don't know what purpose that serves. If anybody knows what purpose that cover served, I've owned 3 different Rickenbackers over the last 20 years, and I've never understood what the purpose of that cover was. But it's right where I want to play, so of course I remove it, and most people do. So with that off, then you have this open cavity, which dust and dirt and stuff can get in there and possibly mess with the pickup. So having this treble bezel is a good thing to have, in my opinion. The bridge, you know, the original stock bridges, there's this infamous tail lift where over time the tail would start to sort of lift up from the body. I've owned 3 different Rickenbackers. I've never had that problem. I had one Rickenbacker I played really hard for 10 years, never replaced the bridge, and to my knowledge I never had any tail lift issues. So, but I decided I wanted a beefier bridge. I'm really a fan of chunky, big, beefy, heavy bridges. I think they sustain better. I think they add to the tone a little bit, maybe give it a little more bottom end or something. That's up for debate. You can tell me what your thoughts are. So maple body, plate, replace my bridge. I don't know what year they started doing this, but I believe it was post 2010. If you know the exact year, you can comment. But they started adding this vintage tone circuit where you pull for the bridge pickup, and it cuts the output a lot, but it kind of gives more of a trebly, punchier sound. I didn't think I'd like it at all, but I actually love it. I exclusively use the vintage tone circuit, and then just the bridge pickup, and then I have a bi-amped system that I use where I use 2 amps and split the signal after the bass, because the Rickenbacker 4003S does not have 2 outputs like the regular 4003 does. It does not have the stereo Rico sound output, but that never really bothered me. The other 2 Rickenbackers I owned did have the output, and I didn't find myself using it very much because you can split the signal in so many different ways nowadays with pedals and all kinds of stuff. So that doesn't really inhibit, for my purposes, what I want to do. So vintage tone circuit. Like I said, I think it was post 2010 they started adding that. I really love it. I use it with Distortion, and it's all I use. I use the bridge pickup, vintage tone circuit, that's it, full on, that's all I do. Controls are really simple. You got two volumes. You got a volume for the neck pickup, volume for the bridge pickup, and your tones for neck and bridge. Very cool. These are single coil pickups. You know, some people complain about the buzz. Some people complain about the output. I think they're great. I have no problem, never had a problem with these pickups. So really nice. The iconic shape of the body, that beautiful shape. I was a fan immediately years ago when I first saw these basses. I was just immediately in love with them. I saw my hero Geddy Lee playing one on that Chronicles video, Closer to the Heart. And when I saw him playing that bass, I just immediately fell in love with the bass. And so I'm just a huge fan. So these are double truss rod systems. So there's two truss rods in there. I'm not sure they really need that, and they're kind of hard to access. So that's a critique, and that's a complaint that a lot of people have, is that they're really hard to access. They didn't give me a tool when I bought this bass, or any of the other Rickenbackers I bought did not include a tool. So you just have to find something that, you know, the correct, you know, tool to be able to adjust those. These basses, I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, but if you look at the specs on these basses, they are not 34-inch scale. They're actually 33.25-inch scale. So they're slightly smaller scale than a standard 34-inch scale bass. Not sure why Rickenbacker does that. They want it maybe a little bit smaller, a little bit easier to play for maybe guitar players that transition to bass, but 33.25 isn't that much smaller than 34. So, but it's kind of cool. It's unique. So great bass, beautiful. I'll get into some issues I've had with it. Just a few issues, nothing that big. But one big one is, and this is another thing I have not heard people talk about in the Rickenbacker review videos and things that I've researched, and also the specs and reviews, you know, written reviews and things on these basses, is that the nut grooves are very precise, and they're milled in such a way that when you buy this bass, the strings are a 105 for the E, a 75 gauge for the A 55 gauge for the D, and a 45 for the G. Now, standard gauge strings are 105, 85, maybe 80 if you buy the Roto Sounds, and then 65 for the D, and then 45 for the G. But Rickenbacker has a different setup. They have the 75 for the A and the 55 for the D. And the nut is milled so precisely that you can't fit a 85 gauge A string or a 65 gauge D string in the slot. You can force it down in there, but then you're going to have tuning issues. And all of the Rickenbackers that I've owned, I had this problem. And I don't want to use the Rickenbacker's strings. They're expensive and they're nickel. I don't like nickel strings. I use stainless steel exclusively. So what I've had to do, and I don't recommend, if you want to do this, do it at your own risk. But what I've had to do is basically take a string of the size that I want, like an 85 gauge A string, and sort of file. I tape the fretboard and kind of just gently file down just to where it will sit down in the slot. And I've done that with both the A and the D string slots, because I want to use standard string gauges. But I don't hear anybody talking about that. And so I'd love to know your experiences with Rickenbacker, if you've had issues or what you've done. I don't know if they've changed that with the newer ones. I know that, I guess the newer ones, they've changed the bridge. So I guess the newer ones, they're better bridges. I don't really know anything about those. But yeah, the string slot, that's a problem. Now you can certainly go to juststrings.com and you can buy individual strings. You can build your own sets of a lot of different brands. And I was doing that for a while, but I just decided, you know what, I have a lot of other basses. I like to use the same string gauge just so it's consistent. So that's what I've done. But do that at your own risk. I'm not telling you should do it. It's up to you. If you don't have an issue, great. But I had an issue. The other thing is the bridge, the infamous Rickenbacker bridges. Before they changed them, which I guess, like I said, in the last couple of years, they've changed them, made them better, and I don't know how they've made them better, but I changed this bridge for a couple of reasons. I didn't really have a problem with the other bridge, but the problem is you can't adjust string intonation very easily. It's really hard to adjust the intonation, and you can't adjust the string height individually on the old bridges. You had to do one side or the other, and so I didn't like that. And you want a nice kind of curvature with the fretboard radius on your instruments generally, and so you can do that with this. Plus, this thing is just massive. It added some weight to this end so you don't have so much neck dive, because one thing about the Rickenbackers is, being such a beefy neck and headstock, you do get a little bit of neck dive with these basses. Not a ton, but it is noticeable. So this actually helps with that, and it changed the tone of this bass. It sounds better. It just does. That's my opinion, but to the purists out there, I'm sure keeping everything all stock and original is preferable, and that's fine. Everybody has to do what is best for them. So that. The other thing is, like I said, the other problem besides the nut grooves are the double truss rod system. I already mentioned that it's pretty difficult to access and get the right tool. But everything else is really good. There's a couple of critiques I have. I don't know if you can see this. Probably can't see it. You can see that little, I don't know, bubble or something that's right there. I haven't done anything to this bass. I haven't taken the cover off. I haven't done anything. So I'm not sure what that is or why. It's just an imperfection of the bass. Kind of weird, but it's kind of a little blotch on there. I'm not sure what that is. The other thing is, if you notice, maybe hard to see these with this video, but there's a coating, because they coat the fretboard, and it looked to me like they coated the frets as well, so that not just the fretboard was coated, they coated everything. And so I found myself kind of chipping this little coating off right between the fretboard and the fret wire, and it was just this stuff was coming off the frets themselves, and I found that kind of weird. So that kind of, you can see on this fret kind of some white stuff. I don't know if you can see it, really hard, but there's kind of some white stuff right by the frets. That stuff was kind of chipping off, and just seemed weird to me, you know, the iconic Rickenbacker and the price you pay for these and everything. And there's great craftsmanship in these basses, but the fact that you have those little things just it's kind of like, why? Anyhow, that is my review. Once again, toggle switch, neck pickup, both on, bridge pickup, active, or I keep saying active. It's not active, it's the opposite of active. The vintage tone circuit, which does lower the output, but it's great with distortion because you're not going to get, it's not going to clip on you as much. You can really dial in a great distortion sound. And that's really it. I love this bass. I really love Geddy Lee. Geddy Lee's my hero, so trying to achieve a similar sound that he had back in the 70s and early 80s with his Rickenbacker is what I've always tried to do. I really love the sound of this bass. Don't know if you can hear this very well.